So welcome back to Web Technology Lab. So in this presentation, we will look into the detailed usage as well as hands-on experience. This gives a hands-on experience to lists as well as forms in a particular HTML page. So I am Mrs. Archana Priyadarshini, Assistant Professor, Department of IC, Canada Engineering College. So in this presentation, you'll see some different kinds of lists like definition list, ordered and unordered list, and we're demonstrating these with the help of sample programs. And you'll also see how to color an HTML background along with the particular, how can you color a particular font or text uh, in a table. So then you can also see about forms. What are the tags that are used? What are the attributes in the form along with the form elements with along with some sample programs. Here let's see the overview about list. So we are using list in our day-to-day life. So we want some printed information or some kind of displayed information. But how it should, the manner in which it needs to be displayed is important. It is we can consider an importance in the ordering, or we can leave out the importance. So we can in this way we can make out the we can jot down list of items for our reference. So there are different ways of representing lists of items. They are unordered list wherein do not have any importance, and the items are represented in bullet fashion. So next kind of ordering in the list, that is we have some importance for each item in the list. So third one is a definition list. So definition is, it's similar to our encyclopedia or dictionary. So how do we represent each items? So we are specifying the list of terms as well as definitions in our definition list. So we'll go through each one of these in the coming slides. So this is an example for unordered list. So usually unordered list, it starts with the UL tag. You can observe in this page. We have given a short example to demonstrate 4 items in the unordered list. So each of these 4 items are treated equally. They are not given any importance in the ordering. So it may be the ginger may be the fourth item, or potato may be considered as a first item. There is no importance. They are purely represented in terms of bullets in an unordered list. So we are representing unordered list with the UL tag, and it ends off with the slash closing of the UL tag. And each item in the unordered list is represented using LI tag, or it is called as a list item tag. So you can observe the result of this web page. So first of all, there is a title given to this web page. You need to have the title, that is HTML unordered list. This must be displayed in the browser's top window. And next we need to have in the main content, as a main content in the web page is, this demonstrates unordered list. So this should be the statement which is the first statement in the web page, followed by the list of the items which are represented in bullets. So here we have not specified any kind of any variation in the bullet. That is, it is purely circle. Any default bullet shape is circular shape. We can also change this shape to disc or square and so on. So I have also mentioned this in the another video presentations. So in the coming slide you'll see the result, or you'll see the snapshot of this particular program. So here is a screenshot for the previous program or code. So the previous HTML code made use of title, which is a HTML unordered list. Followed by that, we had seen the statement called this demonstrates unordered list within the body tag. And next we have listed the items, 4 items that needs to be there in the web page. It's of type bullet. So unordered list, they usually represent it using bullet kind of shapes, and this bullet is circle in shape by default. We can also change the shape of this bullet to disc or square, so as per our convenience. So in the next slide you'll see about ordered list along with some code for this ordered list. So I'll be presenting just a screenshot, and the code is almost similar to the previous one, just the representation of tag matters. what tag that is used for ordered list matters. So, as we know, if we want to give some importance to the items present in the list, we use an ordered list. So, ordered list, they are the list in which the order of the items is important. And this kind of orderness is indicated by having default sequential values which are Arabic numerals, that is, they begin with 1. Default values listing, they begin with 1. And the ordered list is created with the kind of block tag that is OL tag, and we end this block tag with the closing of that OL tag, that is slash OL. So how we can represent the items? So the items are specified there and they are displayed in the same manner as that of a unordered list, that is we are used li tag, that is list item tag, to represent the list of items in an ordered list. So, but the way of representation is different in an ordered list. Since we have used an OL tag, that is ordered list tag, and then we have specified the list of items, their numbers are changed, right? So instead of bullets, we are seeing numbers in an ordered list. So the ordered list may contain numbers, or may contain alphabets, or may contain Roman numbers. So we can specify the different ways of ordering of the elements in an ordered list tag. So here we see the default representation of ordering is in terms of numbers, that is it starts from 1 and then the next item is indicated by 2. So in the next slide you'll see something about definition list. So what is this definition list? So as the name implies, definition lists, they are used to specify the list of terms and their definitions. So if you want an item or the term and the associated with the definition, if you want the term associated with the definition, or if you want an index to a particular content, or if you want to represent in terms of an encyclopedia or a dictionary, so we use this definition list. So you can observe that one tag, we can use a tag 1 to represent web, we can use tag 2 to represent AI. It's like an index. Okay, we use this index 1 to locate the particular item web. We use the index 2 to locate the item AI. So how can we represent this in a web page? So we are using specialized tags, that is we are using DL tag, it is also called as definition list tag, to denote the starting of a definition list, and we are also enclosing the close of the definition list tag whenever that section, or whenever if you want to close that definition list. And each term is defined in the definition list using DT. So if I want to represent the term 1, I start with the DT tag, it's also called as term, okay, definition term, and a DT followed by 1 and then close of the DT. So it's like an index or a term, okay, and the content that must be associated with that term is represented using DD tag. They are the list of definitions that are associated with the terms. So for the for this is how any particular definition list appears. Here we see some variations in the ordered list. You can observe OL tag. We have an OL tag, and there is a type attribute along with the start attribute. So if the type attribute is 1, it means it is of type numbers. So right, so it is of type numbers, and it should start with number 4. So the total output is there is an ordering that starts with the number 4. Next, coming to the next bullet, we have OL, the ordered list, and the type is inferred with the Roman I, capital I. So, and it is also specified that it should start with 4. So, you're using that format, that is capital I, Roman format, and but from there it should start with the 4th Roman. So, obviously, it is of Roman type. It should start with the Roman 4. So next, coming to the third bullet. So we have oval type equals to I, that is small letter I. So and you should start with 4. So you have observed all these kind of options in the word. So it's like start with I, then next two, next 3 and 4 of the same format, right? So it should use that particular small letter I format, and it should start with fourth of that format. That is, you need to start with the 4, right? Starts with 4. Next, coming to the fourth bullet. So these are the variations in how you can change the numbers in an ordered list. So we can specify the ordering to start with A, small letter A, or capital letter A, and we can start the numbering anywhere from any point of the format, right? We can use different formats for representation, and we can start the ordering from. So this is an exercise given to students wherein they have to find out what kind of what this represents. Basically they may think the we have got a heading, okay, that heading, but heading is in a bold font, right? And followed by that you can see an alignment change from HTML to this stands for hypertext markup language. So usually you cannot say this as a block quote or things like that. We can have just the term associated with it. So usually this will be a kind of list. So it's like a list. So there is a HTML tag you can observe, and this HTML stands for hypertext markup language. It's like an index. HTML is an index, and for this HTML, and this HTML is an index to the statement, that is this stands for hypertext markup language. So this totally defines a definition list. So students have to include the definition list tag along with the definition term and definitions tag, and bring out this result. So let's see how to color the any particular web page. Okay, we will be using attribute called as text, okay, as well as background bg color. So it's used to represent background color. So body text should be represented in green color, and the background text of the web page should be colored with these colors. So we can specify the colors in terms of their names, like it should be green color or it should be in blue color. So there are totally 216 colors in HTML. And it's all a combination between hexas of zeros to F. So we can specify the colors in RGB format, that is what should be the color of red, what should be the color of green, what should be the color of blue. So it's a combination of them. So it is represented in RGB format in this way. So we have given it in this format. Okay, we can also specify the value of VG color to be in the color name format, or we can give it a hexa value format. So there are three ways of representing the colors. That is, we can give the color name itself as a value to BG color, okay, or we can give it in an RGB format, or we can give this in hexa format. That is using hash codes of the colors. And here we have represented any body, any text that is written in a web page to be in green color. Okay, we can change these colors. Okay, and the entire background of the web page should be in this particular RGB color. So this is how we can represent the body color, as well as the text color of the web page, as well as the background of the web page using BG color. Okay, and we have also included a paragraph over here that needs to be displayed in the web page. So let's say we are going to construct a table. So usually we specify using a table tag, and that table should have the entire color. If you want the color for the table to be uh, uh, in terms of RGB format, so we can specify the values for the corresponding colors, right, in this format. So if you want the color for the table, we specify it once again using bg color attribute of the table. So what should be the background for the table? Let's say it is in this format. We can also give the background color to be blue or green or any color names, or we can give some hexa values to this table. Right. This is how we can change the colors for any table, or we can change the color for a text or a font. So in the table we have specified one particular row. That row is this text will appear white on the black background. This is the row that is there in the table, and this row, that is this text will appear white on black background, has to be given with some particular color. So this can be specified. See, a text within a table can be given a particular color. It can be done using font tag along with the color attribute of the font tag. So any text within the table can be given a color. It can be given a different color using a font tag followed by the color attribute, and that value for that color attribute can be in terms of hexa, or it can be RGB format, or you can specify the color name itself associate with the color. So these are the ways that we can change the background of the web page, or we can change the color of that particular text within the web page. So if you do not want the entire, if say for example if we have a table and we want the separate color for the table apart from the body background, we can specify using font tag, and then using the corresponding color values or names. Here you can see some of the colors listed. That is in terms of RGB format or some decimal or percentage format. So some portion of R red RGB. So these three values are included, and we get the corresponding color for RGB 000 is just black, and whenever we turn into 255 it is just white. Okay, if the R component in RGB is 255 and others are 0, we get a red color. So likewise there are several colors associated with the different changes in the components of RGB. So this is how different colors are associated with the hexa value. For yellow, we can give hash 4s and 00, and there are different colors which can be given in the attribute for BG color, or we can give it for any different attribute values. So the attribute value that needs to be given to color is either hexa value, or we can give the color name. So like this there are totally 216 colors. So this is just a overview, or some kind of representation, so as to you come to know for each color what is the hexa value. Okay, and there are also RGB components, as I've told you in the previous slide. This is the result of the previous code that we have written. That is, we have specified certain colors in hexa or the RGB component format, and we can also we can just view that there is a table with a single row, and that text appears to be in white font over a blue background. So we can specify the entire background for the table, and we can change just the color of the font within a table. So we have just specified personalized tags for it, and this is the result for the background. So next we will see about forms. So what actually is form? Why it is required? So form, the basic way for a user to communicate some information from the web browser to the server is through this form. Okay, the basic way for a user to communicate some information from the web browser to the server is through this form. And the basic forms they usually use to collect the data from the site visitor. For example, if we write some user registration form, therein in the user registration form the user has to input their names, email address, and so on, some other details pertaining to the user. And this form this form data, this form values, they are basically called the form data, right? For example, in user registration form, the all the values that user types in will be processed in the backend, right? So this form values of all the controls in a form is called as form data. So the values of all of the controls in a form is called form data, and this form data is submitted to the server for backend processing. So this form, it takes the input and then post it to the backend application like your PHP script, CGI, so on. So where in the backend the processing happens. So whatever user enters, that is being validated and stored. So there are different kinds of form attributes. That is, first of all, we need to see how to write a particular form. So each form will have got a form element, or which is a block tag. So it starts with the form, which is a block tag, and then it has got several attributes. That is, it can have action. So this action attribute specifies the URL of the application on the web server. So whenever the user clicks, let's say, submit button, so what action has to be performed while clicking the submit button? So this kind of action is specified in the value associated with the action. So the action attribute specifies the URL of the application on the web server that is to be called whenever the user clicks the submit button. And it can also have empty string, that means nothing has to be performed when we click the submit button. You can have that thing also. And associated with this action attribute, you also have a method attribute. That is, the method can be either you can ask for get or post, so which will be passed to the form data to the server. So usually the default is get. That means whenever we click on the submit button, we get the corresponding data onto that particular page. Okay, so the default is get. So if no method attribute is given in the form tag, the get will be used. That is a default. So there are two values for method, that is either get or post. Okay, so what is the difference? So when the get method is used, the browser attaches the query string, that is whatever string that is specified in the action, to the URL of the HTTP request. That is, if I specify some URL in the action value, that URL is attached to the browser. So that is in the get method. So the form data is transmitted to the server together with the URL. So that happens in get method. The form data, see, first of all the URL will be attached to the browser, then the form data is transmitted to the server along with the URL. That happens in get method. And the browser will insert a question mark at the end of the URL. So what happens in post method? So in post method, the query string is passed by some other method. That is, there is no length limitation. Usually the browser will have some length limitation of URL, right? So that is a drawback in get method, because you need it attaches the URL to the browser, and there is some certain length, specified length, that is associated in displaying the URL string. There is a limit on the length of the URL string. And so if the form has more if the form has fewer controls, get is not a good choice, right? So this post method will have obviously no length limitation, so this query string is passed by other method. So it is a better choice when there are few controls in the form. So different, we have got different form attributes, that is action, method. Action, as I've told, that is the attribute of form. That is, action means we are specifying the URL as to where it is to be directed to when we click a particular button. So action. Then we have got method, that is whether we need to get the page onto the same page whenever we click that particular link, or when that link is specified. So that is get or post. So next we can have the target also, that can be also specified. For example, a new window is to be displayed as a result. So in that case we need to specify the target as a third attribute to form. Let's look into some of the form elements. So the first element is form, that is we have already discussed. I have already mentioned about form as a block tag in the previous slide. So coming to, and we have also seen the attributes of a form block tag. So next in the coming slides we'll see other tags, other kind of elements, that is input, okay, input element, select element, a kind of radio, as well as checkbox, submit and reset kind of elements. So we have got associated tags corresponding to these elements. So for example, for input element we have got again input tag, okay, and several other attributes. Likewise we'll see for other form elements in the coming slides. We have already discussed about form element. The next slide represents about input and its various descriptions. So in the previous slide you have seen different elements like form element, input element, and so on, right? So we'll discuss each one of them in detail. So here I'm considering an input element. So it is one of the most commonly used controls, and it is basically we use the inline tag, that is input. Okay, we use the inline tag. There are different tags, that is inline tag, block tag, so on. So this is a inline tag which is applied to a particular element, and we use the input tag for that. So input tag can be used to indicate we can use this tag to indicate the type of the input. It may be text, or it may be passwords. The input may be a kind of checkbox, or it may be radio buttons and action buttons like reset, submit, and it may be an image, or it may be a button itself. Okay, so all these are called controls. So we use a type attribute that will be associated with the input tag, and this type attribute, it specifies the type of control or a particular kind of control. So whether the type whether the input is of type text, or it is of type password, or checkbox, or radio buttons, and so on. So it's controls, or it controls the kind of input that needs to be given to the space or to the box. And we have listed other controls like reset and submit, and it also requires a name attribute. So these the values that we write, they are included in this particular form data when we write a form, and that form values are sent to the server, and these servers they use these values for processing. The controls for checkbox and radio buttons, they also require a value attribute, so which initializes the value of the control. So in this case we have specified an attribute called type. Okay, type, it is of text, if it's of text, and we can also specify the name, what kind of names has to be or what format of the name must be included. And we can also specify the size, that is the limit that the number of characters can be input within the text box or within the password box. So this size attribute of the input, herein the size of the text box is often usually 20 characters, because the default size, the browser use the default size of the text box. And if, for example, if the user types more characters that will fit in the window, then the box will be scrolled. So if you do not want the box to be scrolled, you can also specify the maximum length. You can also specify maximum length as another attribute to tell how many characters the browser has to take. Otherwise the browser will scroll down the remaining characters, because there is exactly limit on the size of the window and number of characters to be entered into that particular window. So this is how we can control the input tag with specific attributes. So let's see a particular example. So here we are giving two lists. That is, first of all, we want the first name and next the last name. So associated with the first name, we need a box that wherein it enters, wherein it allows the user to enter the text in the enter the characters in the form of a text, and that should take your first name. And followed by this, we have got a break. That is, in the next line, we are supposed to have the last name, and then the values of the names. Last name has to be entered within the box. So in the next slide, you'll see the result associated with this particular input. So here you can observe that for as per the previous code, whatever name, that is in the first name we have entered web, in the last name I have mentioned lab. So it can take any number of characters, but the characters are limited, in the sense the size of the window is limited as to so many characters. If we exceed the number of characters that exceeds the window size, then the sum of the characters are truncated. So this is how we can use the input tag to take the input in the form of a text. We can also use password based input type. So this is described in the coming video sessions. So here in this slide, you also see a password kind of control which is given based on the input tag. So we have the input. The only change is we need to specify it as a password. We need to specify the input type just as a password rather than text. So the you can observe the first line that we need in the web browser display is just the text. The input type should be of text, like as your user ID or your name, and the next field should take the type in the form of a password. So that's the change. You can observe that we have also specified the size attribute, that is whatever the user enters. For example, if the user enters more than 10 characters, here it is given the size is 10. So if the user enters more than 10 characters and if the maximum length is set to 12, so no matter the user enters 10 characters, yet the what the server takes or what the server gets is just the window containing these 10 characters. So no matter if the user types more than 10 characters, server gets only the 10 characters. That is, it can see only up till the window frame size set. Okay, this is about the password type of control. So however, I will demonstrate this in the video sessions. So let's consider another concept, that is in the previous slides we have seen the input tag in the form of a password or in the form of text, input text, right? So in this slide we'll see the input tag, the type, it's of the form checkbox or maybe a radio button. So in when we consider checkbox, so these checkboxes as well as radio controls, they are used to collect multiple choice inputs. That is, the user can select one of the items from the list, and the checkbox control is a single button that is either on or off. So if the checkbox button is on, then we associate the value. Okay, so the value associated with the name of the button is the string assigned towards value attribute. For example, if here in this particular slide we have the value that is milk, so the for associated with the checkbox button we have the milk. Okay, close to the checkbox we have milk. The same thing, it whatever name is given, the for example here groceries, so to this groceries this value is added. So the value name, that is milk as well as bread, is added. So all these come under groceries. So if we want a checkbox to be ticked before, then we use the checked attribute. So you can observe checked is equal to checked. So if you are not specifying this, that means that particular checkbox is not ticked on. By default, it is off. and the user can select one or both of the checkbox. So a checkbox button does not contribute to the form data if it is not checked. Only if the value is checked, and only if the box is checked or ticked, then it contributes to the form data, and that form data will be sent to the server for processing. So every checkbox button, it requires a name attribute along with the value attribute in its input tag. So as we have seen here, it requires, see, we have given along with the type, that is radio button. So whatever text that we, or whatever input it takes, it's in the form of radio button. Okay, or whatever input we take here, it may be in the form of checkbox button. So here we have specified radio button type to be of radio button. That means at a time only one can be on. So that is the difference between radio button as well as checkbox. We can tick, or we can mark a group of checkboxes, whereas it is possible to mark only one radio button at a time. So every time a radio button is pressed, the button in the group that was previously on is turned off. So that happens in radio buttons. But in radio button, once again, the type value is radio, whereas in checkbox, we can specify the value, instead of type, we can specify checkbox. And to each one of them, you see, you need to specify name and value attribute. So checkbox, in the checkbox, the attribute checked, which is assigned to the value checked, specifies that checkbox button is initially on. So this is the sample code that tells about the radio buttons. So for example, here the milk value milk has got checkbox ticked, right? So if the user does not turn any of the checkbox button, the milk will be the value for groceries. So to groceries, the milk value is sent in the form data. So if the milk checkbox is left on, then the values of groceries in the form data would be milk. And if anybody else has specified the bread, okay, so here in this the milk is checked already, and again if bread also is checked, it does not work out. That means since it is of type radio button, so if milk is ticked, okay, initially, it does not allow again bread to be ticked on. So simultaneously any one of them can be on in case of a radio button. But in the case of, if the type is input type is checkbox, both of them can be on or off at the same time. So here is the result of the previous code. We have the milk value checked before. So this is the demonstration of radio buttons. So we had also already mentioned the heading or the paragraph as grocery checklist, and the value milk is associated with the groceries. Presentation, in this presentation we'll see about select element. So select tag is basically goes to have a menu. So whenever a menu is required, that is a long list that we need to display and the number of choices are large, we use a select tag. So there are two kinds of menus. One in which only one item can be selected at a time, that is somewhat related to your radio buttons, and those in which multiple menu items can be selected at a time, that is in the form of drop box. So that we can implement in using select tag. So the if you want multiple items to be displayed, use a multiple attribute that is set to value multiple. So when only one menu item is selected, the value sent in the form data is the value of the name attribute in the select tag. So whatever name that we associate as an attribute close to the select tag. So uh, whenever we click a particular item in the drop box, that item value will be associated with the name given to the select tag. So you can also specify the size attribute, that is the number of menu items that initially are to be displayed for the user. Basically we need only one value at the starting to be displayed, so we set the size to 1. So this is the size attribute is nothing but how many items are to be initially displayed for the user. And if you want to list each of the items in the menu, they are specified using option tag that is nested in the select element. So in the next slide you'll see about some HTML code associated with the select tag. So here we see the format of the select tag. First of all, you need a select tag, then the individual items are listed in option tag. So here you can give the list of options, any number of options you can give, and close to the select tag you can have a name. So under what see, if the items are to be listed under a particular heading or under a particular category, we associate a name attribute close to the select tag. So this is a HTML code. So here we have specified title as HTML select tag under the heading tag. So in this you can see the continuation of the previous code. Two headings are selected. One is the heading with the highest font size. In the next heading H2, which is HTML select tag, and we are given a single paragraph to initialize the drop down list. And if you want to select multiple items in the form of a drop down, we usually specify the select tag, and the select tag can have a name associated with it. Here we have given three options whose values are as labeled here: web lab, AI, and deep learning. So user is allowed to select one of the items from the drop down box. So here you can see the result of the previous code. So this select tag is used when number of choices are there. If user wants to select items from the variety of choices. So in such case, it is not possible to display hundreds or thousands of items. So we usually use a drop down list. So here we have created a drop down menu, and we had already seen the two headings. So one is a larger heading and a small heading, HTML select tag, and there is a drop down box consisting of three items: web lab, AI, and deep learning. Of list. So in list, while representing any particular list, it is there is some standard format of representing a list. Either we can have an ordered list, unordered list, or we can have an ordered list. Okay. Unordered list as well as an ordered list. Or unordered list means you can change the order of the items that are listed in a web page. Okay, you can specify there is no particular importance when you consider an unordered list. So you will be using the tag that is especially UL tag for representing an unordered list. Okay, and UL tag is a block tag which creates an unordered list, and each item in this particular unordered list is represented using LI. It's also called as list item. Clear? So any item within the list can be specified using list item tag, that is using LI tag. So for example, if I want the items to be represented in terms of unordered list, they are represented using bullets. Okay, so bullets, and if you want three items in the to be represented as bullets, that is if I want type 1, it's to be represented as bullet, type 2 to be represented as the second bullet, type 3 to be represented as a third bullet. If I want these three items to be listed in the web page, so and these three items do not have any specific importance, like for example type 1 need not be appearing first, and type 2 need not be appearing only after type 1. So it's like that. There is no particular importance to these three items, type 1, type 2, or type 3. So we use an unordered list for defining such things. So if I want a type 1 to have the highest priority when compared to type 2, I'll be using something called as an ordered list. Okay, and this ordered list is represented using this ordered list. It will have some notation of representation. Okay, that is, we can specify the importance, whether the type 1 has to be first priority, or type 2 has to be second, type 3 has to be third. Usually it is in increasing order. It is first item is given first important, that is first, second, and third. So ordered lists are the lists in which the order of the items is important, and the default sequential values is always they begin with 1. We cannot change the priority. If you want the first item to be listed as 1, please give the item in the first section itself. The number starts with 1 only. This ordered list is created with the block tag, that is your OL tag, and the items in this are they usually are specified using the LI tag. So as usual, so you can just observe. If I want to let me say, if I want to create a kind of HTML page, if I want to create a HTML page wherein I want to define some ordering of the items as well as unordered items. So how will I define this? First of all, I will have a HTML tag, then I will have the head tag. In the head tag, I can specify the title, wherein I want the title to be displayed in terms of the at the top of the browser. So if I want the title to be something like list, that is representing list in terms of unordered and ordered, as well as definition list. Okay, so if I want something like this, if I want to demonstrate these different kinds of lists, so I'll be giving this as a title as a part of the browser's top of the web page. So this I will define in my title section. And next, I can have something written in the web page, the body, that is to represent some content in the web page. We usually give it in the body section, the body tag. So let me say I want some text, and that text should contain items which are unordered. So let me represent this with the UL tag. Unordered list is represented using UL tag, and for this UL tag, I can have the attribute, that is type. That means to say the type of the bullet that is represented in an unordered list. Uh, for example, if I want the type of the bullet to form a circular shape, okay, I'll be representing the type a value to be circle. So, and let me say there are 3 items. So I'll be listing each one of the item using li tag, that is list item tag. So if I have the items, that is orange, let me list some fruits. Okay, this is the first item, list item. The next item, if I want, let's say pears. This is the second item. Let me list just 3 items for simplicity. And if I have, okay, or these list, if I have this kind of unordered list, so let me show you how this will represent in your web page. So this is the thing, you will have unordered list of 3 items, and these are represented in terms of bullets, okay, because that gives no importance to the ordering. Okay, and the bullet type is of circle, and its shape is circular shape. You can also have square shape, you can also have um, uh, square as well as circle. See, all these we can represent it as a type of the bullet. So here, let me say it that this demonstrates unordered. Okay, unordered list. This is what I give it as a heading. So after this, if I want the ordered list too within the same page, I'll just show you for this particular example how to give in terms of code, how to write ordered, unordered list as well as definition list for a particular example. Okay, so you know now what is unordered as well as ordered list, right? So I will include this example of ordered list over here. Just as you know, to specify an ordered list, we give OL. OL is the way to give to represent an ordered list. Okay, so next, if I want the list items to be the same thing, because if I want let me include some other items. Let's say it's circle. Okay, representing some shapes and square. Okay, let me have these list items as a part of the ordered list. So how do I get this in a web page? And usually you close it with the slash ol tag, ordered list tag. So this comes under the body tag. And finally, the end of the HTML page is indicated by /HTML. So before that, let me also include the definition of definition list. There are three types of list as I have mentioned. So what is this definition list? They are used to specify the list of items, okay, list of terms and the definitions in glossaries. So definition list is actually given as a content of DL element. So we usually use DL element to represent definition list, and each term in the definition list is given as a content of DT. Okay, DT, and the definition themselves, they are represented as a content of DD. Okay, so here for example, if I want to denote a definition list, let me give the statement. This demonstrate a definition list. So this is what I have list. So we usually start with the DL tag. Okay, definition list. So it gives some definition. And it is used to specify the list of terms and definition in glossaries. What is the list of terms? What is the? It's like a tag that is given to a particular content. Okay. For example, if I want the text to be indicated by tag 1, for example, if for the second text I want to be indicated by tag 2, the link that is associated with the particular content. So each term in the definition list is given as a content of DT, the DT element. So if we want the term for the definition, see, definitions are indicated by DD, that is may continue the demonstration of definition list. So if you want to represent the term, they are represented using DT as I've already mentioned. So let me give some name term associated with the definition. So if I want it to be associated with some term, so I'll be giving it in this manner. And what if I want the definition? If I want to state the definition of DT, okay, if I want to tell what 12 represents, so I'll be writing it in the DD tag. Okay, so DD tag, they are nothing but definitions themselves. Okay, and so we can specify some content that should be represented for number 12. So let's say to be a two-faced car. Okay, so this is the content. And next, if I want another term in my definition list, so I'll be representing this in terms of I will be represent again in terms of definition term, the DT. That is, if I want another term, for example 13, and this is my term. Next, associated with that, we have some definition. Say an aeroplane or airplane. Or if I want to say it as a four place aeroplane. Four place aeroplane. Okay, so if I have something, some content like this, so how do I? Let's look into the result. So these are my terms and these are my definitions within the definition list DL. So I have closed this and I have closed this section too. So let's save this file first of all. So let's save this as ordered and as well as unordered. as well as the definition list. So dot html, let's save this like this. So let's check out the result. For example, you just locate the location where the file is found. It's over here. So when you click this, let's see what we need to get. So you can observe these kind of results. That is, the first section represents unordered list. That is, they are represented in terms of bullets. There is no ordering. And the second section, you have got ordered list. There is a priority in the items list. First priority is given to circle. Second, we have a square. Similarly, we have something related to definition list. So wherein we represents this in terms of glossaries. So something like representing the terms and definitions. So for 12 we have got two face car. For 13 we have got four place airplane. So something nice. This is how we can represent the list in a particular web page. For this example, this is for an ordered list. We can modify the ordering of the items that are listed in an ordered list. That is, we can have a type attribute associated with this OL tag. OL tag is for ordered list, and the type of the listing, that is, usually it will be listed, usually the items within the ordered list will be represented in terms of 1 2 3 4 and so on. But we can change this kind of representation by having the type attribute associated with OL tag. So we can specify the type to be I. Okay, we can start the, instead of numbers we can give any particular alphabet. I can have I, or I can have small bullets. This is how you can see in the bullet section, or in the listing section or ordering section in a word, right? The same thing. So we can start with small letter A. Okay, the type should be of this particular kind of name, but it should start with 4. So type should be this, it should start with the fourth kind of listing, that is A B C D. So if you want the listing should start from D and E, so on, we can specify it in this manner. So we can change the, anyhow we can change the listing kind of items in an list. So if I want to save this, I'll be saving it in this manner. And let me check out the result when I look into the just observe the location where this file is found. You can see that we have specified, what we have specified is, we have specified the type to be of A, and it should start with fourth of this particular pattern, that is, to start with the D. So how it will be is, this should be the result, or this should be the screenshot. You can observe it starts with D and it is listed accordingly. Next item will be listed as E. So for example, if I want this item to be in different form, it is, if I want in Roman form of first, second, third. Okay, so let me check the result. So if I want to start it with the second one, that is, the type should be of this format, but it should start with the second. That is, this first item circle will be represented as 2 and then 3 accordingly. So you can change this, save it, and then refresh the page what you are searching for. You can observe it as the numbering has changed to Roman 2 and then 3, so on. So this is how we can modify in terms of an ordered list. So what in an unordered list? Let's open a file containing an unordered list. Let me check out the unordered list kind of document. So in this type, here you can just specify the type of the bullet. You know, in unordered list we are using just the bullets, so there are no numbers, just the bullets, no importance. So we can change it to this, or we can have a square kind of pattern shape of the bullet. So if we do this, we can observe the result correspondingly. So just locate the unordered list. So when you infer this page, you can observe the shape, change in the shape of the bullet. It has changed to square. We have specified square, right? We can also have disc, and we can also have circle. So this is how we can vary the shapes of the bullets in an unordered list. We see a particular example wherein we are taking some password kind of input control. So we specify this using input type. So if we are see, I'm just demonstrating about password type input control. So I've given the title, that is password input type control. So wherein the type will be password. Okay, so it will, whatever text that we type will be controlled as a password. It will not be displayed. So this is the type of control that is specified as in a input kind of tag. So here we can see that this is the way we need to give type as a password, and we can also specify the name also as password. Okay, I can give the name as it belongs to a password kind, and I can also specify the size of that password. I can set the limit as to how many characters must be entered, and how many characters must be taken for display. So this is basically, size represents the number of characters that must be taken, and number of characters that should not be displayed. So if you want only just 10 characters to be taken, okay, see, the user may enter any number of characters, right, in the text box. So if the user enters more than 10 characters, but the server will not process more than 10 characters, it just takes only these 10 characters. So the contents of the text box will not be displayed if there are more than 10 characters. That is the main control of this size attribute of input tag. So followed by this, we can also specify the maximum length of the that is, it specifies that if we actually give 10, the and if the user has entered more than 10, the rest of the characters will be scrolled out, or the box limit will be only 10, right? It rest of the characters will be truncated. So if you do not want the box to be scrolled up, you can include the maximum length by an attribute called max length. Okay, max length, we can set it to how many characters we want the window to set in, so that it doesn't get scrolled out. So this is the way we can control, we can set a control over the text that is being displayed to the server. Okay, so this is a form, and you can as I've mentioned, the form takes in what is called as a form element, and this can have methods like get or post, wherein the get usual default method is get will be used, and whenever the get is used, the browser will attach the query string to the URL of the HTTP request, and so the form data is transmitted to the server along with the URL. So this happens in get method, and which is the default method. And we can also specify an attribute called as action. So this action is required. It specifies the URL of the application of the web server that is to be called when the user clicks on the submit button. But here there is no submit button. We can just avoid that. You can also write here form action is nil. It is similar to writing saying that nothing has to be clicked on, that is, no link has to be opened up when this form gets loaded. So that is the meaning of action is an empty string. So we can write this, or we can just avoid this by truncating action. So this is a password type of control, wherein we have set a password, and the name of the password is also is password, and the password size is set to 10, and we have specified the maximum length of it to be 10. So regardless of what characters are typed in the password control, only bullets will be displayed by the browser. So that is the main consideration when we look into password type of control. So let's save this file, and let's look into the output of the result of this screen. So you can observe there is just a box password. We have never given any particular label to this particular box. So we can also set a label close to this box saying that this is a password, or please type the password. You can set a label instead of just like this. So see, we can change this to having password. Let me have the label, that is password. So close to this label you get this as a input box wherein you can type the password. Okay, let's see the change. Just locate that file. You can observe the result, that is the label is associated with the text box. So this label can also be specified by using label kind of tag. So you can do in this manner also. We can specify label tag followed by followed by input. Okay, or else you can also give here the input, that is your, this is your label password, and you can close the label. See, just observe that both of them are the same. Just observe the result. I'm just refreshing. See, you can observe it is the label is associated with the text box. Both mean the same. So there are different ways of labeling the text box. So now we have considered the password type of input control. So in the next type of control, that is, we are going to check about other types of controls, that is radio button as well as checkbox. So if you want to list the items in terms of a checkbox, there is we need to just change the input type to checkbox. So these checkbox and radio controls, they are used to collect multiple choice inputs from the user. Okay, a checkbox is it's actually a single button. You can either switch it off or on, and if the checkbox is on, usually the value associated with the name is the string assigned to its value attribute. So it does not contribute to the form data. So every checkbox button, it requires the name attribute and a value attribute in the input tag. So if we are going to use a input type, that is I'm going to demonstrate now a checkbox kind of control. So we're using checkbox input control. So let us change this to for example, if we want, so this is our body tag, right? So we will be including, let me include a paragraph tag just to give a line above the checkbox. So let's say we are using some grocery list. So grocery checklist, I'm just including that paragraph just above the at the top of the window. Okay, if I want text here in the content of the web page, this is the first line that has to be displayed, grocery checklist. So below this, let me include the form, that is if we want some kind of control, input control, we basically use a form tag, and in the form tag we need to specify what type of control. For example, here we are using a checkbox, right? So I'll give a particular label to the individual list in the checkbox. For example, since it is a checkbox, I have to mention here the type of the control that is required is checkbox, followed by this checkbox kind of control requires a name as well as value attribute. Okay, so let me name this as groceries, and it has got a value attribute. So the value is, let's say it's set to milk. Okay, and I can have the box ticked or unticked, it's up to me, or I can have it ticked before itself, that is with the use of the attribute called checked. Okay, if I mention this as checked, it means that it is the milk is already selected, it is ticked. If I do not have this checked is equal to checked, that means the box is not checked for milk. And see, here I can also have a label associated with it. So if I write a label, I have a tag like milk, and close to the milk tag I'll have the option of ticking or So here let's see some demonstration. Let's continue with the demonstration of checkboxes and reader buttons. So in this particular code, let's see about checkboxes. As I've mentioned, the type control needs to be given as checkbox, and the form data can be included in this manner. So I've included a list of two groceries and labeled them as one as milk and one as bread. So in this way, whenever we give the type as checkbox, we need to have a name associated with this and value. Okay, that is, these are the attributes which are required for the checkbox whenever the attribute is set as checkbox. So for form processing, the name identifies the button and the value is its value if the button is checked. Okay, that's the purpose. If the attribute is checked, it especially means that the checkbox button is initially on. So here, for example, we have set this as checked. It means that it is on. Okay, that button is on. Checkbox button for milk, it is set, it is ticked. Or else, in the other case, in the second grocery, we have not specified the check. It means that it is unticked. Okay, and this is the way we have used a label tag, label closing and opening tag to represent the label associated with this kind of control. We can also present this over here in this space so that we can have the input control and then we can have the label. So let's see the result. Let's see the result of this code. So you can observe that this is under checkbox, and let's see the results. You can see that milk is ticked by default since we have set the checked attribute to checked, right? And how we know the name, we have specified the name attribute that actually identifies the button. Okay, and we have set the value, and value is its value whatever. For example, here we have specified milk and bread, so it is associated with the corresponding value. So this is how we can write a checkbox kind of control. For example, in the next type of control, that is radio control. If I want to have a radio control as an input, radio buttons, they are different from checkbox button, right? So the only difference between the group of radio buttons and checkboxes is that only one radio button can be on or pressed at any time. So in checkboxes we can either tick two, we can have two of them ticked or two of them unticked or one ticked, right? But in radio buttons we cannot have two buttons ticked at the same time. So that is the basic difference of radio buttons and checkboxes. So the type value for radio button here once again is set to radio. So we want radio kind of control, it is set to radio. So here it's also the same thing. I'll just use the same example to represent to demonstrate a radio kind of input control. So here the type value for radio button is radio, and all radio buttons in a group must have the name attribute set in the input. We are having the name attribute, it is set in the input. And all the radio buttons in the group must have the same name value. For example, I need to write the same name here, like groceries, we have the same name for all the radio buttons. So we can have this radio button. Let's see this particular example. So just the change is we have specified the type to be radio button, and at a time only one button can be on. You can observe this result. So let me save this as radio button. So you can just check out the result of this. See, you can observe that at a time only one can be on, right? At a time, only one can be on. Whereas if I use the same example to demonstrate a checkbox, so I'll just change this once again to checkbox, and I will not use any of this checked and all, just to demonstrate the difference between radio button and checkbox button. So now I've change this control to checkbox. Okay, so only this is the difference. I'll just use a checkbox variation. So you can observe that. So let me save this once again. It is saved as checkbox.html. Save this as checkbox.html, and you can open the file. Locate that particular file. You can observe this is the result. See the shape of the checkbox, and see you can tick both of them at a time, whereas this does not happen in the radio buttons. Okay, so this is the demonstration about radio button as well as checkbox button.